The wave that kept going. At a baseball game last summer, the crowd started doing the wave. When it reached section 214, nobody sat back down. They turned away from the field, looked directly at me, and waited for it to come around again. My name is Michael Harris. I was at a Friday night game with my friend Chris. We had upper deck seats near the left field foul pole. It started during the 6th inning, 3 sections to our right. A few people stood, lifted their arms, and sat. The next section followed, then the next. Just a normal stadium wave. When it reached us, everyone stood. I stayed seated because of a bad knee. Then I noticed section 214. They were still standing. Every one of them had turned away from the field. They were staring at me. The wave completed its circle. When it reached them again, they lifted their arms without turning back. Their elbows bent backward. Chris lowered his drink. "Did you see that?" The stadium lights dimmed. The wave continued, but this time each section remained standing after it passed. Hundreds of people rose in order and turned toward us. The pitcher stopped on the mound. The batter backed away and stared into the upper deck. An announcement crackled overhead. "Please remain." The voice died. Everyone standing finished the sentence together. "Where you are." Chris grabbed my shoulder. "We need to leave." We pushed toward the aisle, but the seated people beside us refused to move. They watched the approaching wave with blank faces. A woman near the aisle whispered, "Not yet." "What are you waiting for?" I asked. She smiled. "The empty place." There was one unused seat beside mine, seat 18. My jacket lay across it. The seat slowly folded down by itself. The wave reached our section. Everyone stood. Chris tried to stay seated, but his legs straightened against his will. His knees locked and his arms rose over his head. "Pull me down!" I wrapped my arms around him. Then the people in our row turned toward the empty seat and began chanting, "One seat short." The words spread through the stadium. "One seat short. One seat short." Chris's body jerked upward so violently that something cracked in his shoulder. His face suddenly went calm. He pointed at me. The entire stadium pointed with him. I ran. Nobody followed. Thousands of heads simply turned as I moved while the wave kept circling the stands. On the concourse, concession workers stood with their arms raised. Food burned on grills. Beer poured onto the floor. Every television showed the live game. The stands on the screens were empty. Only I appeared, running through vacant rows. Something tall moved behind me, folding itself beneath each concrete beam. I reached an exit. A security guard blocked the stairs, staring upward at the chanting. "One seat short," he whispered. Then he stepped aside. "Don't be here when they sit." I ran down to the field. The players were gone. From the grass, I could see the entire stadium. Every spectator stood facing me. The wave circled once more. A band of darkness traveled above it beneath the roof. When it reached section 214, the darkness stopped. Seat 18 snapped shut. The chanting ended. Then Chris screamed. His voice came from the seats, the tunnels, the speakers, even beneath the grass. The crowd began sitting row by row. As each person lowered, they vanished behind the seat in front of them. They did not rise again. The disappearing line moved toward the field. I climbed the outfield wall and ran into the parking lot. Behind me, tens of thousands of plastic seats slammed shut at once. The stadium went dark. Police found me near the entrance, bleeding from deep fingernail cuts on my arms. They said the game had been canceled because of a power failure. They also said the stadium was empty when emergency crews arrived. No crowd, no players, no staff. Chris was never found. The stadium was demolished the following spring. Before demolition, an investigator showed me one photograph taken from section 214. My jacket was still across seat 18. Chris's beer sat beside it. Every other seat in the stadium was facing backward. The investigator asked why my name had been scratched into seat 18. I told him it hadn't been there before. He turned the photograph over. Written on the back in fresh black ink were 2 lines. The wave did not end. It is waiting for a bigger crowd. The ground beneath the sod. The dead field rose beneath my boots like a chest taking a breath. Then 1,000 small holes opened in the soil around me, and something underground exhaled my co-worker's name. My name is Eric Miller. I'm a land surveyor, and last October I was hired to mark the boundaries of an abandoned sod farm in southern Indiana. A solar company had purchased the property. Before construction started, they needed elevation readings and soil samples. My co-worker Wade and I arrived just after sunrise. The farm covered almost 200 acres, but there were no birds, insects, or tire tracks anywhere. Long strips of dead grass lay across the fields like old carpet. Wade joked that the place looked vacuum sealed. He wasn't wrong. The ground was perfectly flat, even where drainage ditches should have been. When I drove the first survey stake into the soil, it went down without resistance. All 6 feet of it. I let go. The stake vanished. A few seconds later, something knocked on its buried end. 3 slow taps traveled up through the dirt. Wade heard them too. We should have left then. Instead, we walked farther into the field looking for firmer ground. That was when I noticed our footprints. They weren't staying behind us. Every depression slowly closed, then appeared again several feet ahead, as if something beneath the sod was copying the pressure of our steps before we made them. Wade stopped walking. A footprint formed in front of his boot. Then another. Then another. They continued toward him from the opposite direction. The 2 trails met between his feet. The field lifted, only a few inches, but all 200 acres seemed to rise at once. Fence posts tilted. Loose tools rolled toward us. The surface held for several seconds. Then it dropped with a deep, wet sigh. Hundreds of tiny holes opened through the grass. Warm air rushed out, carrying a smell like mud and spoiled meat. From one of those holes, directly beside Wade, came a whisper. "Wade." It didn't sound human. There was no voice behind it, just air forcing itself through the earth in the shape of his name. Wade backed away. The grass around his boots tightened. I saw the roots twisting together over his laces. He pulled one foot free, but the other sank to the ankle. He screamed for me to help. I grabbed his arms. The ground beneath him didn't collapse. It stretched. The sod pulled upward around his leg like a sheet being drawn over a body. I held on until something below us gave one hard tug. Wade disappeared beneath the grass without breaking the surface. For a moment, the field was flat again. Then a long mound began moving away from me. It was the exact length of a man. Wade's fists punched upward beneath the sod as it carried him deeper into the farm. I could see his body twisting under the roots, but I never saw the ground open. His screams became muffled. Then they came from every direction. I ran. Each time my boot struck the ground, something struck back from below. The blows matched my steps perfectly. Left, right, left, right. Halfway to the truck, the field rose again. This time, I fell. The grass beneath my face separated into thousands of narrow seams. Inside each seam was darkness and soft movement. Not worms. Fingers. Pale fingertips pressed upward from beneath the entire field, feeling along the underside of the sod. One touched my cheek through the grass. Then all of them turned toward me. I crawled until I reached the gravel access road. The moment my hands touched the stones, the movement stopped. Behind me, the grass stood upright. Wade's empty clothes lay on top of it. His body was gone, but his shirt was still buttoned. His boots were still tied. Something beneath the fabric slowly filled his clothes from the feet upward.
I didn't wait to see what shape it made. I drove straight to the sheriff's office. Search teams found Wade's equipment, but they never found Wade. Soil scans showed no tunnels, sinkholes, or buried structures. The strange part was the sod farm's business records. The farm had shipped grass to homes, parks, golf courses, and cemeteries across 5 states for 17 years. The police told me that detail didn't matter. Maybe it doesn't. 3 weeks ago, my neighbor had new sod installed. Now his lawn rises and falls every night. Yesterday, a man-shaped mound moved beneath the grass from his yard into mine. It stopped outside my bedroom window. This morning, I found Wade's survey stake standing upright beside my bed. The bottom 6 feet were wet with fresh soil, and something under my floor has started tapping on it.
The soundproof room learned my heartbeat. The chamber was designed to swallow every sound a human body could make. So when footsteps moved beneath me, I knew they weren't echoes. The worst part was that they only moved when my heart beat. My name is Adam. Until last year, I worked nights at an acoustic testing laboratory outside Baltimore. The building's largest room was an anechoic chamber, a steel box lined with thousands of black fiberglass wedges. They absorbed sound instead of reflecting it. Once the door closed, there was no hum, echo, or sense of distance. After a minute, you could hear your joints move and blood pushing through your neck. Most people couldn't stay inside for 10 minutes. I used to enjoy it. One night, I was sent in to inspect a vibration beneath the suspended mesh floor. The chamber had been powered down, and I carried only a flashlight, a wrench, and a portable noise generator. The door sealed behind me. The world disappeared. I crossed the mesh and knelt near the center. 4 feet below, rows of acoustic wedges pointed upward from the darkness. I tightened one loose bolt. Something took a step beneath me. The mesh trembled under my knees. I aimed my flashlight down. Nothing was there. I stood and shifted my weight. A second footstep pressed upward directly beneath my right boot. It wasn't a sound. I felt it through the floor. I backed toward the door. Each time I moved, nothing followed. Whenever I stopped, the mesh dipped behind me, as if an invisible person had taken one slow step closer. I pulled the release. The door didn't move. Behind me, the floor creaked. Once, then closer. I shouted for help. My voice vanished inches from my mouth. There wasn't even an echo to prove I had made a sound. Then I noticed the wedges below. They were bending. One row folded down, then the next, creating a long depression through the black spikes. Whatever was beneath me wasn't walking between them. It was passing through them. The depression stopped under my feet. The mesh pushed upward. Something narrow dragged across my boot from heel to toe. I jumped away. The thing followed instantly. Not after I landed, after my heartbeat. My pulse struck once in my throat. The mesh dipped. Another beat. Closer. Another. Closer. I held my breath, but my heart hammered faster. With every pulse, the invisible weight moved another step. The chamber wasn't silent. It was listening to the only sound I couldn't stop. I switched on the noise generator. A harsh hiss filled the chamber. The wedges shuddered. For the first time, I saw the shape below, not a body, but a human-sized space where the noise refused to exist. The hiss reached every corner except that outline. It stood beneath the mesh, taller than I was, its head bent sideways. Then it began climbing through the floor. I ran to the door and hit the release. This time it opened. I fell into the hallway and dragged the door shut. The steel bowed outward as something struck the other side without making a sound. The security guard found me. We opened the chamber after my supervisor arrived. Nothing was inside. The mesh had been stretched upward in the shape of 2 bare feet. The company called it a panic attack. They dismantled the chamber soon afterward. I quit before they could fire me. For months, I slept with a fan beside my bed. Whenever the power flickered, I felt something waiting beneath whatever surface held my weight. 3 weeks ago, I woke because the fan had stopped. The room was completely quiet. I lay still, listening to my heartbeat. Thump, thump. Something beneath the mattress pushed slowly against my back. It moved only when my heart moved. I rolled onto the floor and turned on every light. Across my back were dozens of diamond-shaped marks, the exact pattern of the chamber's mesh. I haven't slept in a bed since. But that isn't what scares me most. Yesterday, during a medical exam, my doctor listened to my chest for a long time. Then he moved the stethoscope to my back. He asked whether I had ever had heart surgery. I said no. He listened again and called another doctor into the room. Neither would explain what they heard. When the room became silent, I heard it too. My heartbeat was coming from my chest, and something underneath it was taking steps.